Resourceful Designer, episode 111, How Good Impressions Can Help Your Design Business.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He bought his first cellular phone on eBay for 50 cents. Mark Dickote.
Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for tuning in this week. I'm glad to have you listening. Now, I have an interesting story to share with you today about good impressions, something that happened to me. But before I get to that, I want to share an email I received on Monday. Now, if you remember last episode, I talked about 7 tips for building design client loyalty. Well, on Monday, I received an email from a client. This is a longtime client. They hosted a yearly event, and I do all their artwork and graphics and everything for their event. Now, normally in the past, this artwork that I do is pretty much the same thing every year. The poster doesn't change very much other than the dates and maybe some of the events happening. There's bands that play, so whoever the bands are, those will change. But the overall look of the poster has remained the same for several years, and that's the way they wanted it. They wanted it to be recognizable. Well, this year, they sent me an email on Monday saying that they're completely changing the way the event is run. It's not going to be done the same, and they want a completely new look. And they asked if it's something I would be interested in doing. Well, of course I'm interested. But the catch was, they asked me if they can have a rough design by Friday, because they had a board meeting and they were hoping to show something to their board. Well, I sent the woman back an email saying that I would love to work on this project. It sounds very exciting, especially since they're changing things up this year, but there's no way that I can get something done by Friday. In fact, I can't actually start on this project until probably the middle of April would be the first time I can actually look on it because of my schedule right now. Now, the event doesn't take place until the beginning of July, so working on it in April wouldn't be an issue. But she had asked for the stuff on Friday. So I replied back with that, saying that I couldn't even look at it until the middle of April. And she replied back saying, I fully understand. Don't worry, we'll wait for you. And quote, I don't want to work with anyone else, unquote. Well, that just goes to show the type of thing that I talked about last episode about building design client loyalty. And if you do it right, clients won't care if you can't work on their stuff right now. Even though she asked, she wanted to have something to show by Friday. And when I told her there was no way to do it, and in fact, I couldn't do it for several weeks, it didn't matter to her. She didn't want to look for another designer or anything. She wants to work with me. So I just wanted to show that there's a little bit of proof that what I talked about does actually work. If you do right by the clients will do right by you. Now, I just want to thank everybody who's been latching on and following me on Instagram. Instagram is still fairly new to me. I've only been on it for a couple of months now, but I'm getting a lot of traction there with people following and liking my posts. I mean, most of my posts are just updates about new episodes. But I just want to welcome everybody there. And if you are not following me, you can do so by visiting instagram.com/resourcefuldesigner. And while I'm at it, I might as well let you know that I'm also on Facebook at facebook.com/resourcefuldesigner. And I'm on Twitter at resourcefuld. Unfortunately, Resourceful Designer was too long a username for Twitter, so I had to cut it down to resourcefuld. And don't forget the Facebook group, which you can get to easily by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/group. Now, I will let you know that when it comes to the group, I've been turning down a lot of people lately simply for the fact that they are not answering my questions. Some of them, I look at their profile, they are graphic designers. It might even say they're running their own business, but I specifically say you need to answer my 3 questions. One of them is whether or not you listen to the podcast. And I say it doesn't matter. Even if they don't listen to the podcast, as long as they answer the questions, I will let them into the group. So if you have a friend or somebody that you might have invited into the group, make sure that they know they have to answer the questions, or else I will decline the invitation and not let them in. And now, this week's Resource of the Week. Now, because I have a lot of new listeners, I've been looking at my stats and it's been ticking up and I'm getting a lot of new listeners involved with Resourceful Designer, I thought I'd go back and share my very own 4-week marketing boost. Now, this is a guide that I created to help you strengthen your marketing position. to boost your brand's awareness and your social media presence, ultimately to ensure that you are in tip-top shape to offer the best first impression to potential new clients, because we all know you only get one chance to make a first impression. So when I designed this guide, I divided it into 20 short actions that easily fit into your regular day. And they're designed to take as little time away from your work as possible. Most of them can be completed in less than 30 minutes. And I designed it so that you do one per day for 4 weeks, hence the name, the 4-week marketing boost. And after the 20 days, you should be in a very comfortable position to present your most favorable image to all potential clients. Now, I'm offering this guide absolutely free, and I've gotten great response since I launched this. I launched this guide in 2014, and I've heard lots of great things about it. People implementing these and seeing improvements on their website and just their overall online presence. So if you are interested in getting this free guide, visit marketingboost.net, where you can sign up and it'll be emailed to you. And once again, that's for the 4-week marketing boost, the guide that I created. And now, how good impressions can help your design business. Now, I want to tell you a story. And this story is not design related. I'll tell you that up front. It's not design related, but I want you to bear with me. About a year ago, something happened to our washing machine for our clothes washer. Every time we tried to turn it on and do a load, the washer would start to spin, and all of a sudden it would beep and stop, and the lights on the front panel would start flashing in presumably or look like random fashions. It's one of those newer computerized type things, and obviously something was wrong. We couldn't get it to wash clothes. So I called the repair guy that I've been using for years. He's repaired many of my appliances over the years. I gave him a call only to find out that he had retired and he wasn't doing that anymore. And he apologized that he said he sold all his equipment and he's not doing it. Nobody bought his business, so there wasn't somebody else to take over. He had simply retired. But he did give me the couple of names of some other people in the area that do this or offer the same appliance repair service. Not that he was recommending any, he just told me who else was available. So I just called the first guy on the list and scheduled an appointment for the next day to come in and fix my washing machine. Now, the appointment was for 10 a.m. in the morning. At 11:20, I see a truck pull into my driveway. I was sitting in my office here. I've got my window here looking out. I see a truck slow down and turn into my driveway. Now, this truck is an old, kind of rusty quarter-ton pickup truck with a cab on the back. And he's got one of those magnetic signs that sticks to the door that has his company name on it. Well, the guy gets out of the truck, walks up to my front door. I open it up. And he's standing there in a pair of sweatpants. He was wearing an old Van Halen t-shirt, which normally there's nothing wrong with. I love Van Halen. But this was an old rundown t-shirt. I think he had a couple of holes in the side of it. And on top of that, he was sporting a baseball cap that he was wearing. The cap did have his company name on it, but it looked like it was one of those caps he wears day in, day out, because it had a big sweat stain around the band. And it just didn't look very good. Well, the guy shakes my hand. He apologizes for being late. Apparently, he said he got his whole day off to a bad start because there was a huge lineup at the drive-through coffee shop where he picks up his coffee every morning. And to put it on top of that, his first call in the morning went a little bit late, and then he got lost trying to find my place. Now, I'm not surprised about him getting lost. It's happened many times before with other people. See, my address is Long Sault, Ontario. But I don't actually live in the town of Long Sault. Long Sault is a small town, and everybody in the surrounding area, our address is considered Long Sault for mailing purposes. I actually live just outside of Cornwall, Ontario, the city of Cornwall, Ontario. I live just outside of there. So he told me that when he saw my address was Long Sault, he immediately drove to the town of Long Sault. And once he was there, he was trying to figure out where my street was. But my street isn't in that town. So anyways, long story short, he ended up showing up an hour and 20 minutes after the scheduled appointment. But he was there, so I let him in, and he went in to look at my washer. So he gets to the washing machine, and he starts pressing buttons and trying to run it, like I had done many times, and it wouldn't run. And he's looking at the flashing lights. And he tells me that the flashing lights, the way they're flashing, is actually telling him what sort of errors and what is going wrong. So he presses some random buttons, or I guess they're not random, but there's a special order to press the buttons on the front of the washer, which puts the washing machine into a diagnostic mode. And then he tries to run it again. Well, after running for just a couple of seconds and then stopping, then certain lights on the front of the washer started flashing. Well, he pulls out a piece of paper from his toolbox that he tells me he had printed. I had told him what the make and model of washer was, so he had printed out this sheet, and he pulls it out and he starts referring to it to see what the different flashing lights and everything mean. Now, I ask him what's going on, what's wrong, and he tells me, well, he's not quite sure. Let me just run some more tests. I'll be a couple of minutes here. And I'm standing there watching him do all this. So he's running some stuff and he's looking, he's referring to the sheet, and I'm trying to look over his shoulder, but not getting a very good look at what the sheet says. And anyways, after several minutes, he tells me that he's tested it several times and that the same error keeps coming up. Now, that confused me a little bit because it seems like everything he was doing, it was different lights that were flashing. If it was the same lights flashing over and over, I could understand that. But he's telling me it was the same error, and yet every time I saw it, it would be different lights. But what do I know? I don't understand these sort of things, so I let him do his job. So after a while, fiddling around, trying to get it to work, he finally tells me that according to the errors, it's the motherboard on the washing machine that's gone. Said he's seen similar errors before, and he's 99% sure it's the motherboard. He tries a few more things just to be sure and comes back and tells me, yep, it's the motherboard, and the machine's not worth fixing. The motherboard, I forget what the cost would be, but he said it's way too expensive to merit changing on an older machine like this one. So I thank him very much for his service. He writes me out an invoice. I write him a check for his time, thank him, and he goes on his way. Now, I wasn't feeling too comfortable with that whole engagement. There was something that just didn't sit right. So I went online and I did a search for my washing machine, the model number and everything. And I found the same sheet of paper that he had been using, and I printed off a copy of it. And I'm looking at the sheet, and on the sheet it says that after every diagnostic, you have to press a certain combination of buttons, which will reset the machine. It's basically resets it to default. And you have to do that after every diagnostic. Otherwise, the machine will just spit out random error codes that won't actually mean anything. You have to zero it out before testing it again. And I don't remember seeing him ever pressing that combination of buttons. So I'm starting to second guess his opinion on what's wrong with the washing machine. So I talked to my wife and I told her what was happening. She was at work. I called her up and I said, we might have to go look for a new washing machine. But I said, there's something not quite right. I know it's going to cost us more money, but I want to get another guy in here to look at it. So my original repair guy who had retired, as I said, had given me several different names. So I decided to call the second name on the list. Now I get a hold of this guy and he tells me that he's pretty well booked up for the week. But if I'm going to be around after 5 p.m. that day, maybe he can stop by, depending on how his afternoon goes. And I tell him, yeah, I'll be home. So if you get a chance, please do so. So at 5:05, he gives me a call and says, are you going to be there? I can be at your place in 15 minutes. And I say, sure, I'm here. Come on over. Exactly 15 minutes later at 5:20, a white van pulls into my driveway. Now this van, compared to the other guy, has a beautifully applied graphic on the side with this guy's logo and his business name logo and the whole bit and phone number and everything. Looks really professional. The guy walks up to my door. He's wearing those blue work pants that, you see all over the place. Factory workers use them. Mechanics use them. Nice pair of, they're obviously not brand new or that, but they were work pants. He has a nice blue shirt that has his company name embroidered on it. Looking very professional. I open up the door. Before stepping in, he reaches into his work bag or toolbox, and he pulls out a pair of these disposable, I guess you call them booties, and he slips them on over his work boots so that he doesn't dirty our floor as he walks through the house. So I bring him in and I show him the washer, and he starts doing the exact same thing that the first guy had done. He starts pressing buttons and trying different things. But while he's doing it, he's telling me everything that he's doing. says, I'm doing this. I've got to reset this. And now I'm going to run a diagnostic. And he starts explaining to me how everything works and what this light means and what that light means and how diagnostic mode works. And he's going into detail about all this stuff. On top of that, this guy was not pulling out a piece of paper to tell me what all the lights were referring to anything. It's as if he knew right off the bat what all this stuff was. And he was pressing that combination of buttons that I saw to reset the machine. And even knowing after reading the sheet, I didn't tell him I had printed off the sheet and I had read it. But I asked him what he was doing. And he tells me, he says, oh, well, I've got to reset the diagnostic. If I don't do this, then it's going to spit off just random numbers that don't mean anything. And it could cause all sorts of problems trying to diagnose the machine. So I went, oh, well, that's fascinating, knowing darn well now that the first guy had not done that. So after a couple of minutes of doing this, he looks at me and he says, I think it's a sensor causing the problem. What's happening is the drum on the washer, when it spins, there's a sensor that counts the RPMs, the rotations per minute. And he says that sensor somehow is sending false information to the computer. And when the computer reads that false information, it automatically stops the washing machine. So he says he's pretty sure that that's what it is, according to the error code. And he points out, he says, because you see this error code, this light here means it's the drum, and this light here means it's this, and this light means that. And he says, when I put all that together, to me, that means it's the sensor. And again, he's doing this without referring to anything. He's just doing it by memory, I guess. So the guy goes out to his truck, grabs a box with a brand new sensor in it, comes in, replaces the sensor. He had to lift up the machine because it went underneath the machine, and he installs it, puts the machine back down and tests the machine, and the machine runs through, well, it starts up a cycle, gets much farther than what we had tried before. We weren't going to let it run through an entire wash cycle, but it actually started a wash cycle. And he stopped it, turned the machine off, turned it back on, and did it again, and it worked again. So now it looks like the machine is working, but he's not 100% sure. He says, it could be multiple things. This sensor might just be one of it. So what he does is he takes the old sensor that he had taken off my machine, puts it in the box that the new sensor had come in, and hands me the box. And he says, I want you to hold on to this. He says, you run your washer for a few days, run a few loads through it, and see what happens. If after a few days, there's still an issue, if something happens, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to put your sensor back on the washer, take the new one back, and I won't charge you a cent for it. But if it turns out that after a few days your washer is working, then I will send you an invoice and you can dispose of the old sensor however you want. I'll send you an invoice and that's it. You'll have a working washer. And that was that. He shook hands and he left. Well, a few days later, he called me up to ask how the washer was doing. I told him the washer was working fine. We had ran so many loads through it and everything was perfect. So he said, great. He sent me an invoice for $75. $40 for the new sensor and $35 for the 30 minutes he was at my house. That's all it took him, was 30 minutes to do this. And that washer is still working today. Now, I want you to think about the story I just said. My old repair guy didn't tell me to choose one guy over the other. He just told me who is available out there. He didn't give me his opinion on anybody. So I chose the first guy he had mentioned. Both guys that came to my house, I know, have more than 15 years experience repairing appliances. Both of these guys had good ratings on Google because I searched up. He had just given me the names. He hadn't given me phone numbers for them. So I had to search them. And of course, when you do a Google search, there's usually a rating for people, for businesses. Both of these people on Google had good ratings for their businesses. But obviously, both these repair guys were not equal. The first guy left me questioning his choices, left me questioning his professionalism, but the second guy left me extremely satisfied. Now, fast forward to just this past weekend. Saturday evening, my wife and I are going to watch a movie, and she decides she wants to get some ice for her drink. And she opens up the freezer. We have one of those fridges that has French doors at the top and then a freezer at the bottom. She opens up the freezer, takes some ice out, and the ice is half melted. And we're wondering, like, what's going on? Was the door left open or something like that? But we look at some other stuff. We had some ice cream in there, and the ice cream was starting to melt. So we said, you know what? Let's be safe. We grabbed everything from the freezer, threw it into a laundry basket, and we have a chest freezer in the basement. that's much bigger, I was able to just put the whole laundry basket in that freezer. And we left it at that. The fridge itself, although a bit warmer than what it should be, because there's a temperature gauge inside, it was a little bit warmer than what it should be, but it was still within the acceptable range for a fridge. So we left it at that. I watched our movie, went to bed. When we woke up in the morning, the fridge was much warmer, still just on the edge of being acceptable, but obviously something wrong. And when I tried, you can raise the temperature or lower the temperature, I should say, on the fridge. When I tried that, the fridge wasn't coming on to do it. Now, luckily, I live in Canada and it's cold this time of year. I was able to take all the food, everything out of the fridge, put them in bins and coolers and stick them on the back deck, because it just so happened that the temperature this week is the optimal temperature that a fridge should be kept at. So that was convenient for us. And then I decided, who am I going to call? I only know two repair guys. Obviously, I call the second guy because of the experience I had had with him. Now, this is a Sunday. So I'm thinking, I have to look up the guy's number again. I look on his website and it says he works Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Well, that's fine. But instead of waiting till 9 o'clock Monday morning where he's probably on a call or something, and who knows, I says, I'm going to call on Sunday and just leave a message for him. That way, at least if anybody else calls on Monday, hopefully I can get an earlier appointment because of the message I left on Sunday. So I dial up his number, it rings, answering machine comes on, and I say, his name's Dave. I say, hi, Dave, it's Mark Decote here. I don't know if you remember me, but you repaired my washing machine last year. I'm calling because there's something wrong with my fridge. And then I hear the phone pick up. And he says, hi, Mark, Dave here. What's the problem with your fridge? And I was actually shocked. I wasn't expecting anybody to answer the phone. And I told him so much. I says, I was just leaving a message. I didn't expect anybody to pick up. And he tells me that he was listening. He says the phone rings at home and he can hear the answering machine. He says his ears perked up whenever I mentioned that I was a past client, that he had already serviced me in the past. And then he says, as soon as I said the word fridge, he picked up the phone. Because he says, you don't mess with a fridge. Fridge, there's a lot of money involved in, not the fridge itself, but just the food. If something's wrong with the fridge, you can lose a lot of money for the spoilage of the food inside. So I talked to him expecting him to say, okay, I'll be in by Monday morning or something. Instead, he says, are you there this afternoon? And again, this is a Sunday. And I'm thinking, oh, he's going to charge me an arm and a leg or all that. And I says, well, everything's good. The food's outside. We can wait till Monday if that's okay with you. And he says, no, he says, I'm not doing anything this afternoon. I'll swing by. He says, it just so happens he doesn't live that far. Oh, that was the other thing. Whenever I didn't even tell him where I lived, he just says, oh, I'll be by your place. I don't live that far from you. So he remembered me. He had only been here once, that one time, but he remembered who I was and exactly where I lived. So he did come by that afternoon on Sunday. And unfortunately, the story isn't as great this time. It ends up that the fridge was not repairable. Or no, that's not true. The fridge was repairable. It was just the money that would be required was not worth repairing. Now, again, he took off the back component of the fridge, started testing things and telling me exactly what he's doing, showing me exactly what he's doing. At first, he thought it was the motherboard that runs everything on the fridge. But then he tested some stuff and he says, no, the motherboard's working. We looked and it ended up that it has something to do with the compressor and an inverter. And the money that it would cost to, first of all, test, it was a case of we would have had to order a part in to test to see if that was the issue. But once we ordered it, we couldn't return it if that wasn't the issue. So it was, did we want to invest $600 or so into a fridge just to see if that was the issue? And really, it wasn't worth it. And he told me that he thought, because of the age of my fridge was 13 years old. He says it's not worth putting that much money into it. He thinks we should just get a new fridge. And because of the experience I had with him last time, because of the way he was explaining stuff to me, because of his professionalism, I didn't question him when he told me that I needed a new fridge. Now, in another stroke of good luck, my wife and I went out on Sunday afternoon shopping for fridges, and every store in town had their fridges on sale. So, I mean, what are the chances of that? And the thing is the sales were only on for another 2 or 3 days. So we managed to pick up another fridge. I think we saved close to $1,000 on the fridge. Still paid enough for it, but saved a lot of money in the process. So that's my story of dealing with an appliance repairman or multiple appliance repairmen. Now, what does this have to do with your design business? Well, it's simple. Good impressions make a difference. You can be the best designer there is. You can be amazing at design. You could win all sorts of awards in design. But if you don't make a good impression on your clients, you could be losing them to lesser designers that do make good impressions. That's a fact. Whenever you deal with somebody, it doesn't matter how competent they are. If they don't leave a good impression on you, chances are you won't want to go back to that person. You will find somebody new. So more than just your design skills, your ability to create things, when dealing with clients, you need to be courteous, which means listening to them, involve the client in your conversations, shake their hands when you're done, look them in the eye when you're talking to them and when they're talking to you. You need to be punctual. Show up when you say you will show up. Deliver when you say you will deliver. If for some reason you cannot be punctual, let them know in advance that you won't be able to and set an alternate. If you apologize after the fact because you were late, it's too late. The damage is already done at that point. The good impression is out the window. You also should be presentable. Now, that doesn't mean you have to wear a suit or a fancy dress whenever you meet a client, but look clean and look presentable. We all work from home, so we might get into some routines. I don't shave every day. In fact, there's some weeks where I might just shave once a week. I shaved this morning, and I think I hadn't shaved in the last 4 or 5 days, so I was looking pretty scruffy. But the reason I shaved this morning is because I know I'm going out tonight with my wife. We're only going grocery shopping, but I know I'm going to be going out and seeing people, so I wanted to look presentable. I'm also a t-shirt and jeans kind of guy. If I'm out and about on my own, chances are you're going to see me in t-shirts and jeans. But I would never think of going to see a client that way. I would put on nicer clothes when I go see a client. Again, not a suit, but I would dress up for the occasion. Now, it depends. If I was going to a corporate meeting, I might put a suit on. I would put a suit on. But if I'm just meeting a regular client at their office or something like that, or out for coffee, I won't show up in jeans and a t-shirt. I'll put something more presentable on. Now, creating a good impression means you have to be professional. And that means everything that has to do with your business other than design. When your clients ask you something, have an answer for them. Have something to say. And if you don't, it's okay. Tell them you're going to look for the answer. There's nothing wrong with not having an answer immediately, as long as you tell them that I will get an answer to you. I will find that out and then get back to them with it. Being professional also means don't show up for a meeting with a backpack and pull stuff out of a backpack. Get a nice bag. I mean, it might be a shoulder bag or something else. I have a leather, or actually I think it's a faux leather, black case that I have note sheets in, and I have business cards and I have stuff in it. That's what I take to all my business meetings. It looks professional. It's not a briefcase, but it looks professional. Showing up at a meeting and taking a backpack off and throwing it on the floor and searching through a backpack for your stuff doesn't look professional. When you answer your phone in a professional manner. Don't just answer the phone and say, hello. Answer your phone with your business name and with your name. Even though we're one-man shops, or I presume you are, I am a one-man shop, I will often get people who call me, ask to speak to me. Even though I answer the phone, I say, Marksman Design, Mark speaking, how can I help you? And they will ask, can I speak to Mark DeCote? Well, that's speaking. So answer in a professional manner. Do the same with your emails. When you're replying to somebody's email, reply in a professional manner. That means referring to the people or person you're replying to and signing the email. It doesn't matter if this is a conversation going back and forth. I see it all the time when I send an email to somebody and I'll say something like, hi, Sarah, do you have those files you said you'd be sending me? I'm waiting for them. Thanks, Mark. And then I will get a reply from her that simply says, yeah, you'll get them this afternoon, or yes, you'll get them tomorrow. And that's it. That's the entire reply. Well, I will never reply back and just say, okay, thank you, because that's not professional. I will reply back and saying, Sarah, Thank you very much, Mark. I always address my emails and I always sign my emails, whether it's my email signature that I have by default on an email. But if I'm doing multiple back and forths, like a conversation via email, I tend to turn that signature off other than the first email. And then I would just sign it Mark. But I always make sure to sign it and I always make sure to address it. If I'm talking to Sarah, every email I send I won't say hi, Sarah, with every one. I'll say that on the first one. But I will just say, Sarah. That way there's no questioning who I'm dealing with, and it is more professional. So all of these things, being courteous, being punctual, being presentable, being professional, all of these things will add up to make a lasting good impression. And you need to do that if you want your business to succeed. If you do it right, you've already won half the battle when it comes to landing and keeping clients, because clients are looking for that sort of thing. And then all you have to do is prove that you have the design skills to match the project they want you to work on, and it's a done deal. You have the job. So that's how a good impressions can help your design business. Now, I would love to know if you have any good or bad stories about making good impressions. Let me know by leaving a comment for this episode at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 111. And now, this week's question of the week. This week's question comes in from Joshua. Joshua says, I've been on my own for the last year, and I'm struggling to decide where to spend advertising dollars. What is the most efficient way to gain new clients? Working with the local chamber of commerce, Facebook or Instagram ads, or some other avenue? My clients have been good at referring to me. But since I am new, I do not have a giant book of business to pull from. Any ideas would be great. Well, thanks a lot for the question, Joshua. Now, first off, I'm going to say this again, and it was one of my ways. I wrote a blog post a couple of years ago called 10 Proven Ways to Attract Design Clients. And every single thing in that article, which you can get to by visiting resourcefuldesigner/10 proven ways, and that's 10 as in 10. Everything in that article is a way that I actually use to get design clients. But one of them that I keep mentioning over and over was one of my best ways was simply wearing a t-shirt. Now, I said earlier, you should be professional when you meet with clients. That's when you're going to a meeting. But if you're going out somewhere where you might be running into clients, like you go to a trade show or a network gathering, there's nothing wrong wearing a t-shirt if you're wearing it for a purpose. And in my case, I had a t-shirt that I had on both the front and the back. I had written, "Hi, I'm a web designer. Is your site working for you?" And that's all it said. And I got so much business from that t-shirt, from people coming up and asking me, "Oh, you're a web designer? Can I ask you a question?" Or, "You're a web designer? How much do you charge?" And whatever. They would come up to me and I would start talking to them. And next thing you know, I had a new project to work on, because a lot of these people didn't know any web designers. They didn't know who. Like, there's a lot of people out there that are designing websites, but a lot of businesses don't know who these people are. And just the fact that I presented myself as I'm a web designer, they kind of went, "Oh, there's somebody. I can see him face to face and talk to him." And then they ended up hiring me. So that is a great way for picking up work. And I used to wear that when I went to networking events. I'd wear it at trade shows, like when they had local trade shows around here that were not like niche specific, like just maybe business trade shows. I even wore them when I went shopping at the mall or doing groceries, and I picked up some work that way too. So you can do one like what I had. I'm a web designer. Is your site working for you? Or I design websites that work. Does yours? With a question mark. Anything like that. And you'd be surprised at how many people will come tap you on the shoulder. Now, I know this method still works because I actually shared this idea with a buddy of mine. He's not a designer. He's in a different field. But he was going to some conferences and he was asking me, normally he advertises his business by purchasing a booth, a vendor booth, and advertises his services there. But he was going to a couple of conferences where he wasn't going to have a booth. And he told me, he says, I'm going to dress up professional. I have this nice shirt. And I just said, no. You get a t-shirt that advertises your business, that asks a question, that not just asks a question, but solves a problem for somebody or addresses a question that people have. Says, you wear that and see what happens. Well, he went to a conference in February in Orlando, Florida, and he sent me a text on the first day of the conference telling me that he had already signed up 2 new clients that had spotted his t-shirt. And I forget how many there were at the end of the event. He had picked up a bunch of new clients there. Then just recently, he went to another conference in San Diego. And same thing. He told me within 30 minutes of showing up at the conference, he had already picked up a new client because they had seen his t-shirt. So I know this method still works. And I would have kept wearing it, except I had caught my t-shirt on something and ended up ripping. And that's one thing, I won't wear a ripped t-shirt. And I never did replace it. But a t-shirt is a great way. Now, that's not the only way, of course, to gain clients, Joshua. I did take a quick look at your website. And one thing I noticed is you do have a nice portfolio. You talk about your great clients, some beautiful work you do, by the way. But one thing you don't have on the website is testimonials from your clients. And testimonials go a long way. When people are visiting your site and looking at things, it's great to see that you've done work for these people, but they want to actually hear what these people think. And just a simple testimonial from some of your clients saying how they enjoyed working with you or how well that things have worked out for them. I saw on your page that there was one client that went from something like they started off with a 0% marketing budget, and now they have our operating capital, and now they're at 65,000 after a couple of years. And it was all because of their online presence that you helped create. Well, that's the sort of thing that a testimonial can go a long way when somebody sees that and they're trying to judge between 2 different designers. They're looking at 2 different websites and they go, who do I go with? A lot of times that will make the difference. It's just like when you go on to, say, an online store like Amazon and you're going to make a purchase. Most people will look at the reviews to see what people are saying about that item. Well, that's the same thing. A testimonial is a review about your service or your business. Now, you mentioned Chamber of Commerce. I'm a big advocate for the Chamber of Commerce. I think that every designer should join their local Chamber of Commerce. Mine has helped me out tremendously. Not only have I done many, many, many projects for the Chamber of Commerce, because the thing with Chamber of Commerce is most of them tend to become a closed network, meaning they will hire from within chamber members before they were hire outside of it. So when it came to design, I was doing a lot of work because at the time I was one of, I don't want to say I was the best, but I was at the top of their list of designers that were members of the chamber. And I ended up doing most of their work for them. Now, the other thing about a Chamber of Commerce is, again, they promote from within. So if somebody, say, joining the chamber, a new business is starting up and they're joining the chamber and they say, by the way, do you have any recommendations for somebody to design a website? Well, the chamber might know of a dozen different places that design websites, but maybe only 1 or 2 of them are chamber members. And those 1 or 2 are the only ones they will recommend. So it's a great way. I've gotten lots of phone calls over the years from people saying, oh, I got a recommendation from the Chamber of Commerce. I'm a recent member and they told me I should contact you about this or that or whatever. So Chamber of Commerce is great that way. I think for your advertising dollar, because depending on where you are, joining the chamber is not as expensive as some other opportunities. And you can get some really good return from them. Now, the other thing is talk to your Chamber of Commerce to see what sort of marketing opportunities you have. I know mine, they automatically put you in a searchable directory free of charge so that if anybody wants to search within, like say one chamber member wants to deal with another chamber member, because chamber members, it's almost like a little club sometimes, a little clique where sometimes they want to support each other. And I've found people that have said they found me on that directory. Not to mention, being in that directory creates a backlink to your website, which improves your SEO. Now, there might be other marketing opportunities. I know my chamber allows you, or back years ago when faxes were still around, once a year you were able to do a fax blast, which means you can create a flyer and they would fax it out to every member. Nowadays, they do it via email, but there's some other stuff involved and they are charging now where it used to be free. But still, it's a very nominal fee and I can have the chamber send out an email to every chamber member with my promotion. The other thing is Chamber of Commerce's often will host business-related event. Again, the chamber is there to create business opportunity to advocate for local businesses. So they will often create business events in the area. And you can sometimes get involved with that. Offer to host. Maybe create a workshop on design or a workshop on websites and offer to do it for free at one of the chamber events. And that can really, really help drum up business. Because if you create, say, a workshop on how to get the best bang out of your website, and you give some really good, actionable advice to these people, and then mention that this is a service you offer, a lot of people will say, well, wow, that's some really great advice. I can do all that, but why should I do that? Why don't I just hire Joshua to do it instead? He's the professional. Let him take care of it. And you can get a lot of work that way, providing your chamber will allow you to advertise your business. Now, most of them will let you do this as long as you don't turn it into a giant infomercial about what you're capable of and what your business is. If you make the presentation more generic and just talk about the value of websites, the value of doing certain things with your website, and then maybe mention in passing or at the end when you present yourself and say, I'm Joshua of, and then you give your company name and tell the services you do, you'll see a lot of people will reach out to you afterwards. And word of mouth will spread. The next time, maybe those people won't need your services, but if they ever hear of somebody, they'll say, oh, well, this guy Joshua gave this great presentation at this chamber event. Maybe you should reach out to him. Now, as far as targeted ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, I've never done them myself, but I do know some people that have had really good success. Not so much with Instagram. I haven't heard much about them. I know they're available, Twitter as well, and other things. But Facebook, as long as you target well, you have to narrow down. People that just put an ad on Facebook tend to say, oh, this stuff doesn't work. It was a waste of money. But the people who spend the time to actually target their market, people that are in your area, people that are business owners, people that are just starting up a business, people who have a business page who is, say, less than a month or two old or something like that, you can really target and narrow down the niche of people you're advertising to. People who do that tend to do really well with Facebook ads. As I said, I haven't done it myself, but I know a lot of people that have done really well. Now, one bit of advice, if you're going to do a Facebook ad, Facebook loves ads that link to a dedicated landing page. So don't create an ad that just links back to your website, even though your website offers all your services. I would create a dedicated page on your website specifically for Facebook traffic. And you can even say, thank you for visiting us from Facebook, or thank you for clicking on our Facebook ad. And then you have some information, and then have a call to action that if they want to know more, that will take them to your website or to your main website, because they would already be on your website, but a dedicated page. And that's where you would direct Facebook visitors to. So those are just some ideas that I can give you off the top of my head for drumming up business. The thing is you said you've only been in business a year. It sounds like you're doing well. You've already got some good clients. They're referring you to other people. That's the way it grows. And over time, those new people will refer, and those other people will refer, and your network will grow. Your clients will grow. So it's something that has to happen organically. But all these ideas I gave you are just ways to help kind of boost it a little bit. So I hope that answers your question, Joshua. I do appreciate you submitting it. Now, if you would like to have your question answered, just like Joshua had his answered, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback and submit your question for me to answer in a future episode of the podcast. So that's it for this week's episode. Before I go, I want to remind you of the resource of the week, which was my very own 4-week marketing boost. A free guide with 20 short actions that you can do in less than 30 minutes per day that will help create a better first impression for any potential new clients who visit you. And you can get that by visiting marketingboost.net. So until next time, I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your graphic design business, and as always, reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.